Hello and welcome to Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast, a podcast where we discuss all things relating to your well-being, including interviews with experts in the fields of nutrition, physical and mental health, and my 5-minute food facts series. I'm Amanda Hayes, your host, a nutritionist with a passion for well-being. Before I introduce today's guest, I will take a moment to let you know that you can subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, hit the red subscribe button, or on your favourite podcast app, including iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. I will also mention that although I will often be speaking with experts, any information or advice provided in Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast is not intended to be used to treat, cure, or prevent injuries or medical conditions, and is not a substitute for advice from your own health professionals. Today I am here with my friend Anna Howard. Anna and I went to school together from year 7, which means we have known each other for a very long time. These days, Anna lives in Perth in Western Australia, but her career has taken her all over the world to some really fascinating places. So I'll let Anna tell us about that. The reason I wanted to chat to Anna on my podcast is because she's founded a business called Plantmade WA. There are several aspects to Plantmade WA, including catering. Anna produces her own line of granola, which you can buy online, and she runs some really great-looking cooking classes, including how to pack a healthy school lunchbox. And part of all of this, Anna has become an advocate for healthy plant-based eating. So I'm really excited to chat to her about that today.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I think we'll have so much to talk about today, both being lovers of plant-based food.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Very exciting.
I know. So I think a good place to start is with your journey, which word I don't love, but I'm trying to find a better one, to founding Plantmade WA. And I'd like to chat about two aspects of that. First of all, your career and how you became a business owner. And secondly, how your diet has changed and evolved to become plant-based. So let's start with your career. So I know you've lived all over the world in some really interesting places. So can you tell us a bit about that?
I packed my bags at a young 21-year-old and headed abroad, as a lot of Aussies did, and went and lived in London. And during that period...
And you worked for an engineering company, I think.
Yeah, so I worked at London Underground in engineering, and then and that put me in good stead for kind of returning to Western Australia, where I worked in mining for many years. So, I started in admin, HR type roles, and then it kind of evolved over a 10-year period where I worked in materials and logistics. I'd worked in bore fields. I ran the camp. I ran the catering contracts, and
wow.
And lots of different equipment I learned to drive, and water management. So yeah, it was all very, diverse. And part of that journey was also working with some of the local communities as well. During the early years, I actually did a certificate. I got my commercial cookery certificate. So on my R&R, instead of returning to Perth, I would return to the kitchen at the mine site and got my practical skills up in the kitchen.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of the early days, and then later on I ended up working in West Africa, China and India in mainly materials logistics, setting up materials and warehousing for the beginning stages of gold mine construction camps. So that was pretty full on.
Yeah. Was it where you were? I guess there probably weren't that many facilities. Was it pretty hard going, or was it all right?
Oh yeah, no, well definitely there was mud huts. There wasn't even construction camps and things. So often only white expatriate woman on camp, and but look, it was just the best. Hardest probably work I've ever done, but also it really filled my cup with just a diversification of culture and, life experience. So, I just loved it. So it was great.
Oh, that sounds really fascinating. And I'm learning about you as well, because I said in the intro, we've known each other since year 7, so what, we're 13 or something, so a long time.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know until recent years about your passion for cooking. So this is great. So you obviously started that, back in Perth. So
yeah. So, I mean, that went back 20 odd years ago. And then, look, in between some mining jobs, I did actually end up travelling around Australia. And in that time, I ran a safari camp for a couple of years up in the Bungles.
wow.
And then I used to drive the food delivery trucks out to the Mitchell Plateau, which is the most amazing place in the Kimberley. And then worked for catering contractors as well down here in Perth as well. So I got my skills up and just love that casual work and just that buzz of really being in the kitchen. But the mining industry just kept on bringing me back, I guess. So, so that's kind of how it all kind of began.
And so in terms of your, I guess, the evolution of your palate, Anna, your food, now you live a plant-based lifestyle. So tell us about what you like to eat and how that's changed over the years and why it's changed and how you feel and all those things.
Yeah, I've probably been more of a plant-based eater since my early 20s, really. But I guess the mindset of it, being raised on meat and 3 veg in the good old Australian home, I always wanted to fit in and please other people, and I probably didn't really understand my body or the implications of kind of what was going in. And working in mining, you often it's very heavy meat based foods and all of that kind of thing. And I remember 20 years ago I used to take my juicer to my donga, and I was always taking all the fruit and juicing and trying to get every bit of salad because I couldn't eat the meat and all of that kind of thing. So that evolved way back when, really. But I guess. I'm pretty much 100% plant-based these days, and but it's taken me quite a long time to probably get there and understand it. So, and really from understanding it's been due to my further studies and really just being a bit older and going, yep, I want to do it, and being a bit more committed, I guess.
Yeah, I think, as you say, when you're older, you're less concerned about pleasing other people, and if you want to eat plant-based, you can just do it. You don't have to eat what everyone else is eating. So
that's right. Yeah. So,
and as part of your studies, have you learned, I think you did a raw food course you told me about that sounded really amazing. Where was that?
Yeah, so when I was moving around a bit, but I was living in Toronto 10 years ago now, and I lived there with my young kids, and during that time I was living in this very groovy neighbourhood, Beaconsfield Village, very hip and happening. Everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe you found this neighbourhood because it's so cool. And there was a raw food, everything on every corner, and fresh, beautiful coconut whipped smoothies and all of this stuff. And this is going back 10 years ago. And I'm like, wow, what is this stuff? This is this is so good. And I ended up meeting a couple of guys that had been trained out of New York and had done this particular kind of cookery course out of New York called Matthew Kenny Plant Lab course. And so I ended up working with these guys in Canada, and they had a vegan home delivery service. So they got really trained up through the Matthew Kenny school. And then they thought, oh, well, we're going to do a home delivery service. So I used to go out to their commercial kitchen and I'd worked, 2 or 3 days a week for them. And that put me in good stead for, getting more information about, different nut sauces and bits and pieces and how you can actually build a really great menu from plant-based.
Yeah.
And you don't need meat, and it is sustainable, and it will fill you up and it'll give you the protein that you need. So so meeting those guys, they therefore, when I got back to Australia, I followed up on the courses that they'd done, and then I ended up pursuing that when I got back home, and I studied for the last 2 or 3 years on the same courses. So
fantastic. Yeah.
So
the nut is a big feature, isn't it, in the plant-based world? There's a lot you can do with nuts.
There's a whole lot you can do with nuts, and I think I remember doing the course and obviously doing a whole lot of recipe testing, and then I got to a bit of a point, and I'm like, you know what, I think I'm going to give the cashew a miss for a while. It was like, whew. But it's a very nut and seeds, like make a lot of seed pastes as well and things. But look, I'm a bit of an addict when it comes to a good nut these days. So. All good.
So you heard it first on Amanda's Wellbeing podcast. There's one thing to pursue those as an interest, Anna, but then you've set up your own business, Plantmade WA.
Yeah.
So why did you do that? What was your sort of motivation for that?
Look, I had a family member that fell very sick to cancer, and on my brief visits back to Adelaide, I noticed that all the food drop-offs were pasta, white bolognese, whatever, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there has to be more to this, and for me it was just education, but I really had in my head that I'd do the same as what I was doing in Toronto, and hopefully open a kitchen one day and get a home delivery service, which is plant-based vegan food. And that was the initial thought, but also having 2 young children and not a lot of capital, it was like, okay, let's just go with, and then I don't know what happened. I think I was at my CrossFit gym, and I took a bag of my homemade granola in, and they said, oh, we should sell this. And I was like, okay, let's start there. So
wow, good.
That's kind of how it's kind of how it began. And look, over the last couple of years or year or so, it's just starting to evolve now. And that's been from help through a couple of good friends that have just said, you know what, you just got to start, and you just got to forget about your inner ego, and you kind of got to wing it a little bit and just have a little bit of confidence.
So you've got your granolas, and what else do you do? I think you run some cooking classes. Is that part of it?
Yeah. So I'd run cooking classes, or I'll do some private lunches, that kind of thing. I've been doing a bit of catering for small events like yoga or CrossFit gym types of events. And then I, share recipes. And look, there's a bunch of people that have been asking for the home delivery. So I think that's coming. It'll be small, but it will be just to help busy mums really to.
Do you know what? That is a brilliant idea. There's a woman in Adelaide, her name's Natasha, and she cooks home-cooked meals, and she doesn't deliver them. You go and pick them up from her house, but it's such a lifesaver on those busy days to know that you can feed your child a home-cooked meal that is healthy, that she's cooked. So I think there's a huge market for that.
So yes, I was doing that in Toronto as well. So when I was working in the raw food there, I was doing home cooked meals for a lot of neighbourhood people, and it was very simple. Put your order in on Wednesday, you get your delivery on Friday, and we're good. So so I think that's kind of, I'd like to do that. And I mean, really, a lot of my business is really about helping people. Think differently about plant-based foods, really, and try to incorporate it. If it's not something you want to fully do, that's fine. But if you want to try to encourage yourselves to just switch that head kind of how you look at things, and approach food a little bit differently. And I also believe that it is a more sustainable way of living. It makes you feel for me personally, it makes me feel absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I'll just tell the listeners, Howie looks amazing. Anna, sorry, Howie, that's what we used to call, that's her nickname. She looks amazing. You look so healthy and fit. So,
Thanks.
So it's great.
Thanks.
So you're a good advertisement for your own product.
Thank you, Amanda.
I think also one of the things is probably knowledge, like people having the skills to create interesting and different plant-based foods. So that's something you offer in your classes, isn't it? Just getting, as you said, getting people to think a bit differently about what you can do with foods and with a nut.
And I mean, look, that was the thing with Matthew Kenny. He was French culinary chef, you know. So his way of teaching is very much that French culinary. So, you know, create your sauces and get some really great, beautiful sauces. And look, you can make some really good raw sauces without cooking, and you can dehydrate. And there's all these other tools. And that was the thing, like trying to not sell, but just trying to encourage people to look at plant-based food differently and make it sexy and interesting and bright and colourful and all of those things. So, I mean, look, the feedback from the cooking classes, you know, it's a beautiful social events, but, you know, there's great recipes that people can take home and try and hopefully implement into their daily, you know, life. So that's a win for me. So yeah.
And one of them I noticed that you did was I think it was school lunchbox ideas. So what kind of things did you cook on that one?
Look, we do. There's the raw balls, but using different like seed butters, that kind of thing. I do vegan cupcakes and using vegetables and things like that, and flax eggs and bits and pieces, and then you know, different things that kids like. Kids love, I mean, my kids always often have salads for lunch, but it might be noodle salads or kelp noodle salads or rice salads or something that's going to sustain them, but there's not necessarily a sandwich, I guess. But it's still easy. And so I find that I get quite well organised on a Sunday, you know, cooking and getting organised for the week. And then it's just all just boom, 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 you know, putting it into lunch boxes. And part of that course was really getting organised as well, and just seeing your weekly plan and not having to make 5 meals, but actually simplifying it, and maybe you tone it down for your kids and add a bit more for yourself, or, you know, however you want to do it.
And things like making those raw balls, that's a great thing because you can make a big batch of them and they last for quite a long time. So, it's all about being organised. Isn't it?
It is.
In your sort of view, in your opinion, what are some of the benefits of eating a plant-based diet?
Certainly, it's how it makes you feel. That's, you know, first and foremost. It's, you know, and I think the gut health, I found that, you know, when I was eating red meat, or I'd go out for a degustation with cream and all sorts of heavy things. So now I couldn't even face something like that. But, you know, that kind of feeling for me was first and foremost. But then, you know, there's also the high risk foods, and then I mean, eating a more plant-based diet will obviously reduce your symptoms in things like heart disease and cancer and Alzheimer's, apparently, and diabetes. So
inflammation, you know, it'll reduce inflammation.
So I think there's plenty of benefits. And again, I think just mentally, feel, if you eat well, you feel better, you exercise more. It's just this evolving thing. So
I agree 100%. And I think for me a big part of that too is not drinking alcohol. Makes me feel a lot better as well. Not that I do that all the time.
Sometimes you just got to
have a bit of fun. And do you have any favourite ingredients or dishes?
Look, there's so many. I'm actually running to sea vegetables at the moment. Sorry?
Sea veggies are the go.
Well, I love a good bit of seaweed. Always have, even since being at school. Actually, I had quite an addiction to nori. But I think I don't know, just the benefit. I've heard a few podcasts recently, and just some of the benefits, and the skin feels better and all of that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
it's just something different to, I think I've been using a lot of kelp noodles lately, which I absolutely am addicted to,
Yum.
over a soba noodle or something. So that's been quite fun, just experimenting more with that. But I mean, look, there's so many things that you have to have in your plant-based kind of fridge or cupboard. But there's always seeds and nuts. There's always fresh herbs. Nut milks and different dressings and kimchi. There's lists and lists of things that I can't live without, really.
You make your own, I think you do. You make your own kimchi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, look, that added to a brown rice bowl, or just to lift something, or even the kimchi pancake or something like that. The kids don't mind that. So, yeah, and I mean also like things like nutritional yeast. It's like that was a real discovery a few years ago. So I'm like,
that's really yummy, isn't it? I like that. It's got a kind of a nice savoury flavour. I don't know how to describe it, but it does sort of boost a dish, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, no, it does. It's kind of life changing, I think. Sad but true. Further here. Yeah, so I mean, like that one, because of the studies I did, because it was all vegan. So the nutritional yeast was a big part of making a white sauce kind of cheesy. And I mean, the kids will have that mac and cheese with the nutritional yeast, that kind of thing. Anyway, so. Yeah, but I mean, also for me, the spices, because I've travelled so intensively, and look, one of my favourite chefs is Christine Manfield, who I just find her spice journeys are just so fantastic. That I love experimenting with spice and then putting it into plant-based, because I didn't always cook this way, so. Playing around with different tofus or veggies or whatever. So yeah, it's been great.
So it sounds like you do a lot of experimentation in your kitchen and trying things out.
Continuously, like all the time, yeah.
And you talked about being influenced by travel and things. So you recently went to Morocco. So can you tell us a bit about that trip and some of the dishes that were inspired from that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've got to say, it wasn't my favourite culinary experience, Morocco.
Right.
But look, the vegetation there, it's a real spinner. I was actually in Marrakesh, so you've got this desert land, and then olive groves and citrus trees everywhere. It is phenomenal. And look, I was very fortunate to stay at some pretty spectacular accommodations where the food was incredible, but really farm to plate, very rustic, very, 3 or 4 different ingredients. What I love that they do there is they make a cumin salt. So cumin and salt, and they mix it together. They put it on eggs, they put it on vegetables. They put it on probably their fish and meat or whatever, so that was quite nice. But the simplicity, like we ate a lot of eggplant and, tomato type dishes.
Yeah.
The vegetable tagine, you could have that anytime you wanted.
Yeah.
Lots of tagine. But that was quite heavy in figs and fruit, and I was like, oh God, it was quite rich. So
yes, that's true.
But look, it was fantastic for sure. The
other thing, apart from food, that you talk about is the mind, body, spirit connection, and you talk about daily practice through mind, body, and spirit, and how all the pillars of well-being are interrelated. What do you think what are some of your habits that keep you well, not just in terms of what you eat, but some of your other practices, like what do you do to keep yourself mentally fit and feeling good?
All right, that's a great question, because I love this question. I love life, and I love being outside and in it. I think I'm a little bit town and a little bit country, but I live in the city. So my surroundings are pretty amazing in Fremantle here. So I've got the river and I've got the ocean on my doorstep.
Great.
So having that, and it's 39 degrees, whatever today. So having that, there's often, I do try to have a swim most days if I can in the ocean.
Yeah.
I practice. I go to the gym probably 5 or 6 days a week, and that definitely keeps my mind. It's just my 1 hour I have for myself, really, which I absolutely cherish. I practice yoga probably once a week. Probably I need to do more. I know I need to do more, and I know when I go, oh my God, I need to do more.
Wonderful, yeah.
So that's something for me to set a little bit more of this year, and maybe cut back the gym and do more yoga. And in the evenings, I do a lot of self-guided meditation.
Wonderful.
So I'm not very good on my own with it, but I find that some of the self-guided stuff is just, it's a great time just to be a little bit more present within yourself. So that's a big part. And I think also I just get outside a lot.
Yeah.
Anything I do with the kids, the school holidays, we just had 10 days camping. Even I've got a really nice deck I can sit outside, and often I'll, after dinner I'll go and sit and have a cup of tea and
lovely.
Sit outside. So that fills my soul quite a lot as well.
I agree. I think being out in nature is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. Absolutely, for sure. And I'll just mention that Anna took her kids camping, and she did, all these amazing things. Like she taught them how to fish. She knows how to pitch a tent. She can drive a 4-wheel drive through the desert. This woman can do anything.
I know. It's great. Actually, what I did find when I went camping was there was 3 other, because I was on my own with my kids, and there were 3 other mums all camping on their own.
Really?
Yeah. Their husbands would come and go, but they were down there at Cape LeGrand, all in this bush camp. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of women having to manage all these things on their own in daily life while, life's so busy. So, and for us, for getting away, I mean, I do it my school holidays because, look, it just has to happen. It's great for all our mental health.
Exactly, that space for you and your family. And I think you're a great role model for your kids, showing them that women can do everything. You don't need a man to pitch a tent.
No, you don't.
No. And Anna, my final question that I like to ask all my guests is if you could recommend 2 things that people could do to improve their well-being, what would they be?
I've got to say eating well, because that adds to what we were just saying before. That adds to so many other things. It makes you feel good about yourself, and maybe you exercise more, that kind of thing. And I've got to say being kind, being an all-around good person, and being compassionate.
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I'll just mention too that Anna has the most beautiful Instagram feed. Your pictures are just beautiful. I love all the way you present all your food. It just looks so delicious and so healthy. So can you let people know the best way to connect with you or follow you?
Yeah, sure. Through Instagram, I'm Plantmade WA. I've also got that goes through to the Facebook page as well, which is Plantmade WA, all one word. And then I've got a website which is www.plantmadewa.com.au.
Cool.
And you can contact me through there.
And I'll put links to all of that in the show notes. So thanks, Anna. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Anna today, and I do apologise that the audio quality wasn't ideal. I need to dial that in a bit better when I'm speaking to someone who is interstate or overseas. I'll work on it. So you can subscribe to my podcast, Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast, on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, and while you're there, click on the bell to be alerted when new episodes are available. You can also subscribe on your favourite podcast app, including iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Direct links to all social media can be found on the subscribe page of my website at www.amandaswellbeingpodcast.com. If you would like to contact me, you can send me a message via the contacts page on my website. Please feel free to suggest topics you'd like to learn more about and people you'd like to hear interviewed, and I will do my best to deliver that to you. Producing the podcast is a labour of love. We put in a lot of time, money and effort behind the scenes. So if you enjoy Amanda's Wellbeing Podcast and would like to make a contribution via Patreon, PayPal or by Amazon to help ensure we continue to provide you with excellent content, please visit the Contribute page on my website. Finally, please take a minute to leave a ratings on iTunes. It improves visibility. It will help people find the podcast and it will help me source excellent guests. Thank you for tuning in. Eat well, move well, think well.